Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. Nikola Tesla.
What is gravity?
I have no idea. Okay, next question.
Wow.
No, here's the difference. We can describe gravity. We
Okay.
can say what it does to other things. We can measure it, predict with it. But when you start asking, like, what it is, I don't know.
So did I accidentally ask a deeper question than I meant to?
Yeah, no, you were meant.
If you ask yourself the pertinent questions, the entire scam will begin to unravel in your mind, such as why are we still using 1940s technology and supposedly sending rockets into space based on blueprints we received from Nazi scientists for rocket propulsion when Tesla was giving speeches over 100 years ago telling the world how to evolve from that. We have a new iPhone, an upgraded piece of tech every year that leaves the average consumer dazzled and amazed, yet we supposedly went to the moon 6 times in 4 years with 60s Nazi technology, never to return again by the way, and Wernher von Braun's Saturn V rocket, which we still have apparently not evolved from, or so the powers that be would love to have us believe. Unfortunately, the average citizen never ponders these pertinent and logical questions because they've been specifically programmed and trained not to.
Einstein proved right again after 100 years. From an electric universe perspective, the irony is quite telling, since it shows the Einstein bandwagon careening off into a black hole of its own creation. Phys.org.com says, "For the first time, scientists have observed ripples in the fabric of space-time called gravitational waves, arriving at Earth from a cataclysmic event in the distant universe. This confirms a major prediction of Albert Einstein's 1915 general theory of relativity and opens an unprecedented new window to the cosmos." Once again, we see science journalists thirst for sensational headlines, with academics feeding a media frenzy. Some would call this more a theory of funding, not gravitational waves, but gravy waves. The more sensational the headlines, the more news media attention and funding potential. Unfortunately, as a result, the public can no longer distinguish science from its opposite, pseudoscience. There is no fearless investigative journalist to ask the awkward questions like, how in real terms does matter tell space and time how to curve? What does it mean to curve time when it has no physical dimension or direction? The word space simply signifies locations in 3 dimensions. So how can you weave a fabric of space-time out of non-physical concepts? The language is meaningless, used to impress rather than inform, and the scientists remain unaccountable to the tax-paying public. Some incredibly detailed claims are made to the effect that the signal originated in the last fraction of a second before the fusion of 2 black holes somewhere in the southern sky. It is said, based on computer modelling, that the black holes joined about 1.3 billion years ago, and their mass was 29 and 36 times greater than the Sun. None of these claims can be substantiated. A mathematical computer model is not real evidence for those claims. It isn't science. The image of Einstein, the embodiment of genius, in front of a blackboard where he had just scrawled R sub ik equals 0, says it all. As Steve Crothers has noted, that simple expression says there is no matter outside the black hole. By its own definition, a black hole exists in an empty universe. No partner to orbit it, and no observer to witness it. The principle of superposition, that is, multiple bodies, in a flat Newtonian universe does not apply in the asymptotically flat space of the fictitious black hole universe. Decades ago, I sat in a public meeting at the Australian Academy of Science to hear the well-known English physicist and science fiction writer, Paul Davies, author of The Mind of God and God and the New Physics, drumming up support for government funding of the Australian Gravity Wave Telescope. Davies is a past winner of the lucrative Templeton Prize for bringing science and religion closer together. Scientists and the public don't seem to realise they were never separated. Big Bang cosmology amounts to archaic religious concepts disguised by wearing a mortarboard. I had the impudence to ask a question at the time, whether it wouldn't be a good idea if scientists understood gravity before they began spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a gravity wave telescope. The Englishman Davies arrogantly dismissed my question by suggesting that my question was typical of the colonial cringe. But after $1 billion spent on the advanced version of the gravity wave telescope LIGO, the question appears to have been answered as I had anticipated. Einstein didn't understand gravity. What's more, it appears he didn't understand light either. At the Electric Universe 2015 conference, I presented the culmination of my research into gravity since the 1980s. My choice of title, The Long Path to Understanding Gravity, reflected the difficulty anyone faces attempting a paradigm shift. As the inspirational teacher Evan Camp said at an earlier Electric Universe conference, a journey in the wrong direction of 1 mile becomes a much harder journey of 2 miles to correct. The difficulty is, as the educational psychologist Dr. Harry Linden's research shows, when confronted with evidence that conflicts with your paradigm, the usual response is denial, followed by accelerated forgetting. The heart of the issue here is that Einstein didn't explain gravity. As many scientists are beginning to acknowledge, a new paradigm is now required by the sheer force of discovery. Looking back on his life at age 70, Einstein gave a clear evaluation of what he believed were his accomplishments. And I quote, "You can imagine that I look back on my life's work with calm satisfaction. But from nearby it looks quite different. There is not a single concept of which I am convinced that it will stand firm, and I feel uncertain whether I am in general on the right track." This confession, in a personal letter to Professor Solovine dated 28th of March 1949, was not made public until many years after Einstein's passing. But rather than inspire critical thinking, today's worship of Einstein creates an unresolved enigma. Two philosophically incompatible views of physics, quantum mechanics and relativity, standing side by side in scientific lectures as if such a horrific contradiction can be profitably overlooked. Einstein will continue to be proved right for another 100 years, because when all of the standards of physics, the observer and the observed, are relative and arbitrary, the theory is unfalsifiable. It's not science. Simplicity is the key to the electric universe. And perhaps a little humility wouldn't hurt either. Why not simply admit that we've hardly begun to solve the great mysteries of the universe and of our own real place in it?
The book is called Gravity is a Myth and Does Not Exist. Electricity is the only force in the universe. This book explains in great detail why the term gravity should be omitted altogether, and this was a failure of Walter Russell. He should have gotten rid of the term. I think I'll just make note to the people that follow my work. This is supposedly a Gemini shot here. It's pretty funny. As anybody can see, this is nothing but a picture of the sky here behind the astronaut, which is inverted. This was taken from Earth. So it's not looking down at the Earth and its ocean, it's actually looking up in the sky. Then these clouds down here were inverted, so it's upside down. And then they put this fake divider line, this terminator line here, which is not remotely believable. So this entire shot is fake. This is what we were told was a spacewalk during the Gemini program. It's not even remotely believable. So, as I've said here in the introduction, the consequences of these conclusions are immense. It means that a huge list of non-existent entities have been conjured up by the academic scientist based on the mathematics of a non-existent force. For example, dark matter, dark energy, black holes, singularities, event horizons, WIMPs, MOND, machos, neutron stars, gravitational collapse, gravitons, gravity waves, quantum gravity, inward pulling gravity, gravitational lensing, the gravitational constant, the Schwarzschild radius, gravitational radiation, frame dragging, general relativity, anti-gravity, virtual gravitons, quantum theory field, to name just a few, are in fact false and mythical as well. There is no such thing as gravity, and everything that's been conjured up in the name of gravity is a myth. It's false. This is an electric universe. There's only one thing in the universe. It's different pressure conditions of the one thing, the one force, which is electricity, otherwise known as light.
Researcher and author Anthony Patch states, quote, "In short, the accurate model of the mechanisms governing the functioning of our known universe is that of electromagnetism, not gravity. What is mistaken for and therefore labeled as gravity are in fact, and this has been thoroughly peer-reviewed, magnetic lines of force and the actions of accelerated charged particles moving at various velocities. Additionally, these same electromagnetic forces act in identical fashion, whether one is measuring actions taking place between particles at the quantum level or on a planetary scale. What has been detected by LIGO and other similar experiments preceding it are in fact magnetic lines of force and the movements and actions of accelerated charged particles, such as electrons and protons, among many others. As for black holes, supermassive, twin or otherwise, none have been experimentally reproduced in the laboratory. None have been measured in terms of electromagnetism. None have been moved from the chalkboards of theory to factual and provable constructs nor mechanisms. Many scientists will back me up on this statement. To define what are labeled as black holes, one must look beyond the again theoretical labels of dark matter and dark energy, neither of which have been proven to exist, and yet are considered as constructs of black holes. Looking beyond, one finds plasma, what Tesla labeled the ether, comprising the so-called vacuum of space. This ether is electrically charged plasma. Black holes are a gathering due to magnetic attraction of this electric plasma. This is not gravity sucking in all matter and light as mainstream scientists describe black holes. Einstein's work, gravity, was hijacked for profiteering. Tesla's work, the ether and electric universe, is the real science hidden away and employed at CERN.
We're wondering how much of our reality in a scientific view is based on a faulty premise. Now, gravity is heralded as ruling the universe. And from the time of Galileo to Newton up to Einstein and then into modern day physics, we have been set up with this concept that because an apple fell from a tree, there's this thing called gravity. We're looking at a system of science that is giving us energy through gravitics, and they are using explosion engines and burning coal and doing everything necessary in our world to make this place a hellhole.
Uncovering the missing secrets of magnetism. Here we have a standard CRT tube with a grid with a spiral projected onto it, which is being taken off of an old camcorder that's pointing at a wall with a grid on it with a, you can see, a clockwise spiral. So I have this camera, old camera, hooked into an old television set, taking a look at a clockwise spiral. Now let's take an enormous 2-inch by 1-inch N45 neodymium iron boron magnet, and let's show you centripetal and centrifugal vortex movements as we approach the CRT tube. Here we go with a magnet. Now, let's discuss this in a second, but first, let's look at what's at the center here. Can you see what's at the center? You see those scintillating hairs that are moving off in a clockwise direction? Okay, now let's flip the magnet the other direction, and let's see what sort of spot we get on our CRT tube this way. Oh, surprise, surprise, look. We're getting counterclockwise movement. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. There we go. Take a look at that. Now, how do I know which polarity I have pointed here? Well, let's zoom out and take a look at our magnet. Now we have, of course, a clockwise pattern projected from the camera, from the camcorder to the television set. So let's see what this side of the magnet does to a clockwise spiral on the CRT. It moves it in the same direction. And look at the edge definition of where the black void is, because the black void is being caused by the centrifugal magnetic velocity. Here you can see the little spirals in the center of the white spot in the middle with the, you can see that we're moving, our centrifugal field is moving clockwise, but our centripetal field, which is at the middle of the magnet, is moving exactly opposite. It is moving counterclockwise. And we'll do a lot more CRT demonstrations showing quote-unquote repulsion and quote-unquote attraction of magnets against the CRT tube, which is emitting dielectric lines of force that are contacting the phosphorus on the inside of the tube. That is why the magnet is such a great demonstrator against the CRT tube. And this is the first example you've ever seen of someone proving beyond any shadow of a doubt, using a CRT tube, that the centrifugal on a magnet, meaning the outside rim edge of the magnet, is moving absolutely opposite to the center of the magnet, the centripetal returning. And I used it using a geometric projection from the camcorder off of a grid paper on the wall. Now let's actually turn these magnets end on. Oh my god, look at that. It looks like a single magnet, but this is actually two. In other words, when you look at either pole like that, you'll look exactly the same thing underneath the ferrocell as it does with one magnet. Oh, how shocking. That would be a proof of a Platonic incommensurability. But this is the exact same thing they report in their own video as seeing. You actually see a vortex of binary objects rotating around a point, a null point of maximum acceleration and inertia. Is this any proof of Einstein's gravity waves? No, it's simplex electromagnetic theory. It's very, very simplex electromagnetic theory. This doesn't prove Einstein at all. It actually, all it does is it reinforces Tesla, reinforces James Clerk Maxwell. You see, Einstein didn't invent a damn thing. And what little ideas he did have, he stole from Henri Poincaré and others. There's actually many books out there about that. This is just classical electromagnetic field theory that explains the observations of Tesla and Maxwell. I mean, these idiots spent millions and millions of dollars, and they want millions of more funding, which is why they made a huge press announcement. Because they want more money for more funding, because that will, you know, pad their jobs for the next 20 years. And they're going to be looking for something that has already been explained 80 years ago by classical electromagnetic theory. Well, my God, let's reinvent the wheel and ask for a bunch of money for it. So today's huge scientific announcement was nothing other than a pile of crap by a bunch of brainless scientists with more money and more gear than brains, looking for plenty of funding to keep their asses in work. Oh my God, what a timeless story of stupidity and ignorance.
You might be wondering, why would they hide this from us? Why would they make up gravity to hide the electromagnetic universe? And the answer is free energy. Tesla says electric power is everywhere, present in unlimited quantities, and can drive the world's machinery without the need of coal, oil, gas, or any other of the common fuels. Nikola Tesla knew that we could manipulate the electromagnetic field here on Earth, the thing we call gravity, and we could use it as free energy to produce anything we'd like. But the thing is, the powers don't like that at all. Because remember, they own all of the energy companies. 9/11 was a false flag so that we could go into, for two reasons. One, to go in for oil, and two, to set up a central bank, right? The thing is, we don't need coal, oil, gas, or any of the common fuels if there's free energy that we can manipulate in our favor in order to obtain free energy. But obviously, they won't allow that to happen because we're just stupid little people who need to buy everything like consumers so that they can build their empire off of our labor, hiding free energy from us so that we can't go out on our own and do our own thing. We're dependent on their energy. You see why they would hide this from us? They wouldn't be making trillions of dollars in the fossil fuel industry. So if you doubt the electromagnetic universe that we live in, take a look at time and space, Einstein's science, the gravity myth, and our electromagnetic reality. I'm going to link this video in the description, and I expect all of you guys to watch it. So I'm calling BS on gravity. Einstein was a fraud, and Nikola Tesla was a hero.